So let me just share this to social media. I'll be right back. Okay. Okay. Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to just get that posted and get back to here. Um, so I am going to give this another few seconds to go completely live because I know I register with the platform. And then I'm going to get into everything. Let me see if I can get my internet so it'll go a little bit better here. Okay. All right. So for those of you that are new here, my name is Aowasi. And if you were by any chance here a couple of days ago, I brought a live through around how awareness doesn't create change. And one of the most common underlying things that crosses my path, especially when I'm working with others and even in my own experience, is the way that we tend to approach our lives, our reality. When we're going through the process of connecting with others, we go into that connection, we go into that relationship from a place of expectation. We are looking to get something out of the relationship. And so not even just the relationship, but our entire life, we go through our entire life with this whole collection of information. And I know at least for myself, when I got really, really deep on the spiritual path, the one thing that I was trying so hard to accomplish was ascension. I was trying to ascend. I was trying to become enlightened. I was trying to reach some higher state. And my perception was if I reach this higher state, then I'm some like higher form of a human being. And so, what I want to bring forward today is the difference between knowing and being, going a little bit deeper into that whole subject matter and that topic, because it's very, very powerful when we recognize that awareness is not the same as embodiment. And this is important because for me, for the longest time in my practice, I really believed that as long as I was aware of what was happening, that change would accompany that awareness. That all I had to do was know what was happening and my life would get better. And so what happens is there's a trap to that. There's a knowing trap, even a spiritual trap. And again, this is something that I experience and I have come up all the time with clients. I had a session just a few days ago, and the underlying theme, or shall I say, the overriding theme of that is that knowing versus being. So, what I want to offer here is that we can know where our problem is, we can know where it comes from, we can know what we should do, and we could know everything there is to know about the pattern, but we're still facing the challenges. We're still unable to emotionally regulate. We're still unable to regulate our thoughts. If you're similar to my client was having trouble sleeping because of intruding thoughts, and the way that the feeling was coming through the body, the way that he was experiencing this, and it really disrupting his sleep and his day-to-day activities. And what happens is when we're carrying around so much knowledge and we have such easy access to it, we can read books, listen to podcasts, go on to here and receive videos. We can go on Google, we can go into AI, we can receive so much information, and we tend to just absorb the information, but we don't do anything with it. And so we think because we know how something works, that we actually understand it and embody it. And so, what I'm here to discuss today is a continuation, like I said, of my last life, but it's also the first more in-depth episode around the human condition series. And so I will have a series of videos coming out titled The Human Condition. And we are going to be exploring multiple layers to what it means to be human. And a lot of this stuff is going to be stuff you've heard about, but I'm going to offer you the way that it is for me in my personal experience, how I've applied things, and how things have worked for me through that application. One of the things my mentors taught me is that you're either building a foundation on sand or you're building a foundation on stone. Sand doesn't work, right? And if we walk around acting as if we know everything, we're carrying all this information but we don't actually apply it, then we're building it on sand. And the center of that, the reason why it's so unstable, is because at the center of that is me. It's everything I know. I know this, I know that, I know more than you, I know more than this person. That's exactly where I was coming from. The spiritual ego is pretty insidious, right? The more information I knew on the spiritual path, the more that I could channel, the better I was. And I was trying so hard to be a good person that I wasn't accepting the person that I already was. And that's a part of the human condition. Can you accept who you are? Because every single person that I work with, every single person that I have worked with, even myself, we've all been running from who we are. There is like a massive fear that lives at the core that simply says, I don't want to be this person. I need to become someone better, right? I need to be more successful. I need to make more money. I need to have a relationship, or I need to have a better friendship, or, I know when I started on the spiritual path, I believed that there were better friends, better soul family, that certain people that believed a certain way were better than my other friends. And so I was trying really, really hard to be seen as being a part of a certain type of circle, a certain type of community. And that's pretty toxic, right? It's pretty toxic. So, what was happening is that I was secretly believing that if I know enough, if I become aware enough, I'm going to graduate from being human. I'm going to ascend to higher dimensions. I'm going to elevate my consciousness, and I'm going to escape the 3D. And I was trying so hard to escape the 3D that I wasn't living in presence with the 3D. And something really beautiful happens when you simply just live in the presence of the 3D, because the 3D is the playground of the ego. It's the playground of this level of consciousness. And if you give yourself permission to accept that, and you stop trying to avoid it, you stop trying to escape it, you stop trying to perceive it as something negative or something bad. Same thing with the ego. There's nothing. Apologies, my internet cut out. The ego believes a very specific way. The identity believes a very specific way. And that's the way that we've conditioned ourselves, and we've been conditioned growing up, is to believe that the more that we know, the better we are, or at least some portion of that. And if we just raise our consciousness, if we raise our awareness, we can somehow become more than human. But awareness doesn't remove our humanity. It actually deepens our relationship with it. And so if we're willing to accept that instead of trying to escape our humanity, we can actually unify with it in a way that is just loving and unconditionally accepting. So the trick here is to not try to run from the bad and seek out, because again, that's something that I encounter when I'm working with those that are interested in recovering from some form of addiction, or they're interested in being able to process emotions. The key factor to that is to not try to run from it and to not try to escape the bad to seek out the good. The fact is that there is no such thing. There's no bad, there's no good, there's just simply the perception of it. So every emotional experience lasts 60 to 90 seconds. If a person can sit there and just simply embrace the experience, then you're being in presence instead of avoiding the emotion and talking about what you know about the emotion, which tends to look like I talk about my experience, I talk about my patterns, I talk about my behaviors, but I don't actually do anything differently, even though I know about those parts of myself. So, what tends to happen is people will enter onto the healing journey so that they can healing being one of the like main goals, right? We want to be able to regulate so that we have a balanced nervous system, so that we can process things. And this goal is regulation and healing. What happens is that then people try to avoid dysregulation, and dysregulation is where growth happens. So when I am in an acute emotional response and I am feeling anxious, I'm feeling fearful, I have maybe some shame coming up, or I have some judgment coming up. If I have judged the shame, or I'm shaming the shame, then instead of it moving through, I'm actually trying to avoid that experience, that very human condition, in lieu of being a completely 100% regulated being that has all high vibe, positive experiences. And therefore, my sole purpose is just to heal. But in that process, what gets overlooked is the power in the dysregulation. When you can be in the dysregulation and you can witness the thoughts, right? Metacognition, you witness what you're thinking as you're thinking it, and you're aware of why you're thinking it. When you're in that space and you're aware of your thoughts and you're aware of your feelings, not that you have to know why, but you have an awareness of why, then you begin to understand what the next step looks like. And that's the transformation. There has to be movement out of awareness into something different, right? That's where repentance comes in. It's just doing the opposite. So most people believe that once they have an awareness, or at least I know I did, I thought if I know my pattern and I understand it and I know where it's coming from, then the next step is transformation, simplicity, logical, deeper understanding, and this comforting reality where things are always positive and healing and healthy. And so that was my goal. That's what I was striving for. But unfortunately, that's not how life works. The human condition is about feeling all ranges of emotion and sensation and not avoiding some in lieu for others. That's addictive behavior. That's why it's really easy to get on your computer and your phone and scroll and numb and avoid, because what your body is really asking for is stillness. It's asking for silence. It's asking for you to be with what you've been avoiding since childhood. Those moments where your parents were fighting, or maybe some abuse took place, and those uncomfortable emotions were never processed, not because they were bad, just as a child, you didn't really know what to do with them when you felt that way, because there was no safe space, there was no boundaries, there was no one to teach you how to process what you were feeling. If you're like me, many of us as children, when we're expressing excitement or when we're expressing fear or pain, a lot of times, like our parents are just passing down what they knew, we're either shrugged off, or we're told just to be quiet or to calm down, or we're told it's not that bad. And so our emotions are downplayed, and basically we're taught to ignore them, or we simply believe it's not safe for us to explore the emotions, period. And so if there was a lot of arguing, if there was any abuse in the household, then basically what happens is, as a child, you're seeing that emotions come in two ranges: really intense negative, like the really high highs and the really low lows. This is something I witnessed as a child, right? My parents would get into really bad arguments. My brother and my dad would get into bad arguments, and it would be really bad. There would be, physical interactions, and then the next minute things would be great. And so my perception was that if certain things are said, then there is something that follows that is not so nice and not so enjoyable. So if I play the good girl, if I act as if everything's okay, then I won't get in trouble and nobody will get mad at me. So I start learning how to people please. I start learning how to avoid uncomfortable conversations. I start learning that certain things are allowed and other things are not. And I will downplay the capacity that I have to process my own emotions. As we go through this process as adults, instead of this awareness leading directly to transformation, just because we understand something, we learn, and then life presents us the lesson again. Then I discover I haven't embodied it. This has been happening to me so much over the last few months. That same lesson that I have been facing for years is in my face. It's even been in my face today. And so then I practice being with it. I practice processing it. I practice experiencing it. And then I forget what I practiced. And because I forget what I practice, I have to revisit the lesson again. And then I remember everything that I went through before, and then I practice it again. We're not trying to avoid the lessons. We're practicing the ability to be more present with the challenge and with the lesson every single time we face it. Again, it's not about reaching some like higher ascended state where you're just escaping the lesson and escaping the human condition. You're not trying to kill the ego. You're not trying to kill the personality. You're learning how to be one with it. So in the process of embodiment, the one thing that we have to let go of, and it's something I've been discussing this whole time, is knowing. It has nothing to do with how much you know. It has everything to do with how present you are being in the moment that the lesson appears. So the trap of knowing is comfortable. That's why we go into knowing, because it's a comfort zone. And the safety of knowing is the certainty. If I am certain I know something, then I am comfortable in that certainty. And the mind loves certainty. It loves answers and it loves understanding. So when I choose to access everything from what I know, I'm not embodying anything, but I am definitely in the certainty of my comfort zone. And in that pocket, I'm not processing emotions, because knowing is a mind game of certainty. Therefore, I'm not actually present with what I feel. I'm chasing the certainty and the safety of what I know. And I will consistently, and the way our nervous system works is our nervous system is receiving information based on familiarity. So even as you are tuning into this video and listening to me right now, or as you're listening to a podcast, or you're reading a book, or you're having a conversation with a friend, you're hearing based on your level of presence, awareness, and embodiment. And when embodiment is lacking, you're going to hear through the lens of everything you know, and you're going to be on that gravy train consistently. And that's how you get to control the conversation. Because if you know, then you can jump in and you can be in that place of control and emotional manipulation. And if you manipulate, you don't have to feel. So we go into this to basically avoid feeling like we don't know. Because that perception of belief, or that perception, that belief, has a lot of meaning around it. Because growing up in school, right? If you didn't know the answer, if you're like me, there was a little bit of shame, embarrassment, humiliation, like, please don't call on me, because what if I don't have the right answer? Then I'm going to get in trouble and I'm going to get, reprimanded. Or even in a conversation with your parents growing up, if you were talking to them and you came running up and you were really excited and you wanted to tell them something and share something with them because you knew something and you'd figured something out, and it was dismissed. again, the lack of safety and not being received translates itself into needing to know everything in the right way so that you can be perfect in that good girl or good boy persona. And this is how we've spent many years of learning through attachment and trauma, codependency, narcissism, and the dysregulation of the spiritual ego. So if we don't pause long enough to ask ourselves, like, what am I experiencing right now? Then we're going to consistently be operating from the belief that we already know what we're experiencing. This has been coming up in my own life around my fur baby and some things that are going on with him. And when he was going through some challenges physically a few nights ago, my immediate reaction through fear was that I know what's happening. And because I believed I knew what was happening, I was already anxious. I was already fearful. I was already thinking the worst. And so everything that he was moving through, I was only seeing it through one lens. And that was the lens of, oh, I know what's happening. And at the same time, I was freaking out because I didn't know what was happening, if that makes sense. Like, I was approaching it as if I knew that something was horribly wrong, which is everything I know. I know something's horribly wrong. And on the flip side of that, even though I know something's horribly wrong, I don't know exactly what that is. So the way that the fear is working is it's pushing me to try to control the situation by actively believing that I know that the worst case scenario is playing out. But it wasn't. So not only did I not actually know what was happening, I couldn't see what was happening. I couldn't actually see what his body was moving through because I couldn't actually remember why he was moving through it. And that moment, all my nervous system could perceive was what I know, which means I'm not paying attention to anything else. And I can't receive the signs and I can't receive the deeper intuitive insights because my nervous system is firing on the rush of I know, I know, I know, and simultaneously the fear and the terror of not knowing exactly what that is. So this is something that has been consistently persistent in my life. And the biggest gift in that moment was, number one, I stopped, I slowed down, I got a hold of myself, I turned to God, and I said, God, just please show me what I'm not seeing. I took some breaths, I gave myself permission to regulate and at the same time allow the fear to be there. I wasn't trying to bypass the fear. I wasn't trying to play it down. I wasn't trying to escape it. I was wanting to see the situation more clearly. And the only way I can see more clearly is if I confess that I don't know what's happening, that I can see it differently if I allow that higher power to actually guide me from the inside out. And so once I asked God to place that message in my heart, I actually was reminded that I had given him an herbal supplement to cleanse his body, which was why he was going through what he was going through, which was some diarrhea and, just some, not keeping food down, because I was doing a cleanse. I was doing a kidney and a bladder cleanse on him. And so his body was purging. But I had, in the moment when fear is active, all I'm thinking is that I know something's wrong. And that's where the analytical comfort zone lies, is I can control this. If I know that something's wrong and I can figure out the exact wrongness, I can identify it, I can label it, and I can fix it. That's the way the personality and the ego operates, by control. Control, we believe, is safe, but it's also the only way that protector in our personality knows how to keep us safe. And it believes that if we can just fix the problem, then everything will be okay. And that's where I was operating from. So when we're moving through a situation like that, let me hang on, I'm scrolling up to these messages. It's good to see you, my friend. I'm grateful to hear that you've been staying in love and non-judgment. That's amazing. Okay, there. Now I can see the chat a little bit better. When we're going through a situation like that, where fear is really, really, really heavy, there's anxiety. I mean, I was panicking. I was having a panic attack. And in that panic attack, I was so desperate to fix what was wrong that I wasn't giving myself permission to listen to the other options and the other possibilities. So when we go into expressing our experiences, there's a difference between, this is what I'm going to share in this part is, let's say you're sharing your experience with a friend, or you're going into a client session, or you're just sharing it with God. Like when I was moving through that experience, I shared it with a client of mine who's also a friend. And there's a few different ways that we can approach our experiences. So when you're reviewing, when you're looking at something that's happening in your life that's really, really challenging, you're either looking at it from what's happening to you, and therefore you speak about it from that place of what you believe, that it's that knowing, that space of knowing, like, I believe this is happening. And so when I speak about it, I talk about it from that place. I speak about it of what I know about me and what I know about the situation and what I know is happening. But there's a difference between talking about a feeling and actually feeling it. And the majority of people actually come from that place. They'll talk about the feelings, but they're actually avoiding feeling them. And so there'll be this discussion around, like, oh, I know that there's fear there, or I know that there's sadness there, or I know that there's grief, or I struggle with abandonment, right? If I can say those words, I struggle with abandonment. I struggle with people pleasing. Even that experience with my fur baby, underneath that is the fear that I have somehow done something wrong. And in that, I have literally just been a horrible person, and I haven't done something right. And there's a fear that he's going to somehow die because I've been careless. I can talk about it from that place of, I struggle with that fear, or I can actually explore it from the experience of how it feels when I'm in the experience. So if I'm in it, then I'm speaking from it, such as, I can feel fear rising right now. And I have fear arising that this person might leave me. If I have a fear of abandonment, then I have a fear that this person might leave me. And I can feel that fear coming up as I speak about the fact that I struggle with abandonment. And when we're actually speaking from the feeling, then we're also processing it in that moment. Because as you begin to speak about it, you're exploring it instead of it just being a thought that you're trying to process in your mind. And so when you actually, and I always invite this in for people, when you're in some really challenging experiences or moments, I always encourage you to have someone you can talk to about it. I would always encourage a mentor, but if you do not have space for that, I would definitely encourage you to speak with a friend that you trust, or a family member that you trust, where you can vocalize the feeling as you're moving through it. And I actually, like, my clients and people that I work with, even if they're not paying me, I hold space for them to express what they're moving through. And I actually invite this in for people on here. I share my email. If you are going through a challenging situation and you would like someone on the other side to hold that space and even reflect some things back for you, then you have the opportunity to hear yourself speak about the situation. And that is highly transformative, because instead of just talking about the situation, you're feeling yourself through it. Like right now, I'm talking about what happened with me and my fur baby. If I choose to go into that differently from what was taking place in the experience, which is what I did with my client and friend, then the emotions come to the surface. And that's the difference between the two. So when you speak from within the emotion as it's moving through, then you begin to process it. Just like if I say I know I'm a people pleaser, but at that time I'm actually in the process of I'm actually in an experience, an event where I'm acting out those tendencies, then the difference would be I notice myself changing my answer because I'm afraid of disapproval. So those are drastically different in the way that they show up and the way that you speak about them, right? So when you acknowledge that what's actually happening is you literally just changed your answer because you're afraid that who you're talking to is going to somehow disapprove or not like you or not accept you, then now you're not only talking about how you feel, you're exploring why you feel that way and what's actually taking place. Just like I was struggling with control with Bruiser. That's why, again, the fear, I was struggling with control. But when I'm being with that moment, I can feel myself trying to manage the outcome, and therefore I can be in the process of that feeling. It doesn't change the pattern, it changes your relationship with the pattern. And that's where again, 99.9% of people that I cross paths with are trying to change the pattern, but they're not going through the process of creating a relationship with the pattern. It's just avoid the feel bad, talk about everything you know, and don't go through the process of actually shifting the dynamic. And again, embodiment is talked about so much. And I have there's I can't really name many that I've crossed paths with that are actually embodying. And this is simply because embodiment is coming from what they know. It's, oh, I know about embodiment. I practice embodiment because I do XYZ. And at the same time, if we were to go into a conversation around their behavioral patterns, the conversation would come from what they know about what they think the pattern is, or what they know about what they think the behavior is, or what they know about what they think the conversation is about. And therefore, in that, there is actually not embodiment, there's just a topic of conversation. You're not really living from the experience that you have embodied because the lesson has not actually been processed. The relationship to the lesson hasn't shifted. So I'm really hammering this in, you guys, because there is a very big distinction between just knowing something and being aware of it and being able to embody a transformative experience. I'm going to give you an image here. Imagine that you walk into a dark room, you turn on the lights, and it allows you to see the furniture and it illuminates everything in the room. Just because you turned on the light doesn't mean it rearranges the furniture. That's the way awareness is. You can turn on the light of awareness, but that doesn't change what's actually happening. It doesn't change your relationship to what's happening. So, irregardless of everything that you know, it doesn't mean you're actually transforming. Awareness reveals, but presence transforms. So when you're present with the experience, you understand your relationship to the emotion, you understand your relationship to the experience, your relationship to the patterns. That's where transformation happens. And there's also something really powerful that happens when you own that you do something, right? When somebody like is sharing with you, like even just now, as I'm sharing with you around fear and control, you have an opportunity to acknowledge how you do that same thing. Like, it's really easy to acknowledge that you're doing something powerful, right? Like, oh yeah, I'm raising my consciousness, or I'm elevating and activating that. Like, a lot of times people will agree with that. They will say, yeah, I'm doing that. Yeah, I'm elevating my consciousness. Yeah, I'm raising my awareness. That's where they want to attach themselves. But rarely will you hear people acknowledge that they're doing something that they believe is being judged, or acknowledging something that they believe is shameful. Like, oh yeah, I people please. I do that. Oh yeah, I do. I emotionally manipulate. I do that. Oh yeah, I have this racket in my head that constantly is telling me that people are judging me and that people are thinking bad about me, and I have this racket in my head that's constantly telling me that I'm worthless and that that I ought to kill myself. I mean, there's rarely will people acknowledge that. um, I've been fortunate to have a few clients that jump straight into that, and it's really amazing how they begin to mm, how they begin to become more available for not only their own transformation but themselves. Because instead of that part of themselves hiding and judging and shaming, they acknowledge that it lives. They acknowledge that the shame lives. They acknowledge that they do those things where there is shame. They acknowledge that they do those things where there is judgment, instead of trying to just be seen as the good person that's doing something good. Um, like, it's really easy to jump on the bandwagon of awareness and purity and embodiment and somatics, and everybody acknowledges that they're doing that. But rarely will they acknowledge the parts of themselves that they believe are lesser than. And that's where the power lies. Just like in dysregulation, dysregulation is where you learn if you're present with it. It's not in what happens after that. You're always going to have more awareness in hindsight. We all do. But the power is in the presence of the dysregulation. So that's a really powerful skill. Anyone that can own their shit is owning their side of the street, is owning their actions. That's massive responsibility. It takes courage to do that. And like I said, it's not something that I witness that often. So what I practice and what I offer in my own practice is catching the pattern and the awareness in real time. So most of the time we notice we've done something wrong or bad or unworthy, or we'll notice a pattern. Like, I'm not saying there's actually anything wrong or bad, but that's just how it's labeled. Most of the time we'll notice the pattern, like after we've had an argument with our partner, we'll like come to this awareness, this point of awareness, like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I said some pretty hateful things. I was pretty rude. I was pretty resentful. After we go on a spending spree, I'm actually working with a client right now that's facing their addiction to spending. And I'm so proud of my client because they are acknowledging what's happening prior to the spending, not just after the spending. And the emotions that are present in the body, the thoughts that are present, that's the power. When you catch it before, then you have an opportunity to choose differently. It doesn't mean you're striving for perfection. It doesn't mean you want to just shame yourself if you spend money, or you get in an argument, or you people please, or you emotionally react, or you withdraw and withhold. You're not judging the fact that it happened. You're looking at, how can I be with this? Acknowledge it, own it, and see what my other possible options are, instead of consistently going into it in the same way and denying myself the opportunity to love what's happening in that moment instead of avoiding what's happening. And that's why we overspend. That's why we get into an argument. That's why we people please. That's why we emotionally react and withhold and withdraw, is because we're avoiding whatever is happening in that leading up to that actual, let's say, situation. So if we slow down long enough, then we can catch it. We don't avoid it. We're with it. We begin to embody because we're present and we're actually learning differently. And that builds new neural networks. So what if you noticed that you're withdrawing as you're withdrawing? That's like, boom, that's a superpower. If I notice that I'm going into withholding, I'm going into withdrawing because this happened to me with my mentors. When I'm called to the forefront to be witnessed, and I know my patterns and my behaviors are going to be listened to in real time, not just me like recording something and sending it, having somebody listen to it and play it back, and I can just like decide to listen to the feedback in my own time when I feel better or when I feel good. No, I'm in the moment in front of other people, and my mentors reflecting to me in real time my patterns and assisting me in correcting it. Whew. I didn't like it. I didn't want to deal with it. I wanted to withdraw and withhold and run away, because as I'm hearing myself speak, I was already judging what I was going to say. I was already trying to like posture myself so I could be seen as a good girl, so I could be seen as having all the answers, so I could be seen as knowing what I'm talking about. And because I'm really wanting to people please and I'm really wanting to control, if I feel like I can't do that, then I don't want to even participate in the experience. So I really want to run away and I want to withhold and I want to withdraw. But if I catch that, if I'm aware of that, then I can slow myself down long enough not to try to perfect the conversation or the exchange, but to own it in real time and say, you know what, this is what I'm noticing right now. I'm noticing this is what's happening in my body. I'm noticing that I'm beginning to pull away and I'm feeling like I want to run away and get away from this conversation. That's owning your side of the street, not just sharing information about what you know. Like if you're having like a topic conversation, my mentors offer topic calls. I could share information back about what we're talking about. So I could talk about what we're talking about. And that's where I was attempting to prepare myself from. So this means I can have the right answers and I can give my mentor the correct answer so that I won't be punished. But that's not really what's going to teach me about myself. What's going to teach me is if I own what's happening in my body, what's happening in my thoughts, and what's happening in the space of what I feel. That's where the transformation happens. And if I own that, then the reflection coming back to me is assisting me in owning it and supporting me in that process. And I am learning, my nervous system is learning that it's safe, that I can be open, honest, and transparent, and I can be received as who I am in that moment. And I don't have to pretend to have it all figured out. I can own what I'm feeling, I can own what I'm thinking, and I can simply have someone show me that it's safe and it's okay by just simply acknowledging that and reflecting it back to me. And it's also how I've been able to transition out of controlling so much is I know what my controlling thoughts sound like. I know what the controlling feels like as I'm going into it. I know what triggers me in wanting to control. I know those parts of my life because I've visited them so often. So I already know that's the part. I do know that part, but that doesn't change anything unless I'm willing to, in that moment, not follow through with wanting to control things in the way that I always have. Because if I do that, I'm just abandoning myself. This is where choice actually enters. That's where freedom begins. The real choice is in repentance and doing the opposite of what you've always done, because in your tool belt, you know you can take the knowledge and you apply it in real time. It doesn't happen after the fact. Just because you know what happened doesn't change what happened. And moving forward, it's not necessarily going to change what happens, but it is going to soften the blow of what's happening if you're consistently reactive or avoidant to it. Because honestly, the body doesn't care what you know. The body responds to experience. It does not respond to information. So when people say they're embodying something and they think they're embodying because they know a bunch of stuff, that's not embodiment. And just because you're experiencing certain things doesn't mean you're embodying. It's how you experience and how you understand your perception of the experience. I know one of the biggest things that was taught in the spiritual path is love and light, right? Love and light, like I talked about ascension, reaching higher states of consciousness, higher dimensions. But the trap in that is the perception that everything is going to be happy and loving and joyful all the time. And we just all need to be happy and joyful and loving. That is true. Choosing to approach every situation with love is the central source of our power. When we choose to approach with love, love is not based on what someone else does. It's not based on what you do. It's not based on the situation. And love doesn't necessarily have an emotion attached to it. Love is simply just being open to the experience for what is. That means someone can share something with you and you just openly receive it. It's wonderful that they're sharing that with you, even if it differs from your perception, even if it differs from your perspective. This has been a big one for me. Allowing people to share something without needing to supply something in return. Really been practicing that for about 2 months now. And if I can hold space and I can just let someone share with me, then in the space of that experience, they see that it's safe to share, that nothing is going to come back to them, and that they can be openly received without anything, except for obviously now they might be having some thoughts or some emotions, but it's not because of that other person. They get to see that. It's not the other person that's triggering something. It's the racket in their head. It's the noise, it's the meaning, it's the story, it's the interpretation of what's happening, not what's actually happening. So love is the ability to simply receive. And when you can go into an action willing to simply just be with the other person, for me, that's love. This is another big practice with my mom. Just showing up and doing things for her because I can. Not to get her off my back, not so that she'll shut up, not so that, I hope that that'll appease her for a certain amount of time and I don't have to hear her talk about it again. That's the way I used to approach it. That was a form of manipulation. Now I just do it because I can, not because I have to, not because I need to, not because she's asking me to, just because I can. That's love. It's also the ability to look at your life right now without priding yourself on who you are and what you know, because none of that really matters. That's not who you are as a person. Who you are as a person is how you show up, not what you're doing. The action is what it is because of the version of you that's acting through that choice. And what I have learned about love and peace and high vibe and positivity is that I would never be able to fully understand how to approach people with such love and acceptance if I did not have the other side of the coin to show me the difference. So the shame, nothing wrong with it. Humiliation has taught me humility. Judgments, they only exist in my mind. They don't exist out there. Any expectation that I have of another person can never be met by them. It can only and ever be met by me. And so when I'm allowing love, I'm not chasing someone. I'm not trying to be validated through what I know. I'm not, this is also why I pulled away from social media and I've just come back in, is because everything that I did, every live that I brought through, every post was about, I need people to validate me. If I got followers or subscribers or likes or conversations, then I felt like I was doing something right. It's such a dopamine rush, but it goes deeper than that. Like, yes, there's the dopamine hit of attention, but like, why am I seeking that attention? Because there were moments in my life, in my childhood, where I believed, I was still acting from the belief that I wasn't getting attention. I was still acting from that childhood perception that I wasn't being heard or loved, or that, people weren't really there supporting me in the way that I thought they should be. And so social media, just being on a computer or phone in general, is a way to get some form of attention and to avoid those feelings from childhood. So the body is still living out those beliefs and those meanings. So we can walk around all day saying, like, yeah, I'm safe. I'm safe. I know I'm safe. And yet we still get triggered and reactive when somebody says something in a certain way. We can go around all day saying that we're whole and we're healthy, and yet we still act in unhealthy ways. We binge eat, or we eat foods that can't love us back. We walk around talking about that we know we're worthy, and yet we still internally feel inadequate. So your body is simply representing the truth of what you believe and the truth of what the interpretation or the meaning is that you've assigned to situations throughout your life. Maybe you reached out to a friend and you were really like excited. You wanted to invite them to go check out a new museum or a new coffee shop, and either they didn't respond or they responded back and they weren't interested. And in that moment, that inadequacy comes through. The feeling of, oh, I've done something wrong. Like, why don't they want to hang out? Why aren't they excited? And that's because when we send that message, it's about more than just hanging out with that person. There's an expectation that because we're excited, that person's got to be excited too. Like, they're going to want to come hang out with me because I'm excited, and because I want to do this, that they're going to want to do this, and they're going to want to hang out. If they don't respond in the way that we think they should, then we have that feeling of inadequacy and being let down, because even if we think we're worthy, we don't actually feel and believe that inside. Our nervous system and our body isn't going off the familiarity of worthiness. It's going off the familiarity of inadequacy, and lack. So, and that's because throughout our life, we've been operating cognitively. Like, knowing something is a cognitive process, right? It's a cognitive, it's behavioral. But being is experiential. So if I'm being different, then I actually have an understanding of what I know. I have taken what I know, I've applied it, I have an experience. That experience lives through my body. My nervous system has created new pathways to accommodate that experience differently. So I am actually speaking from much more than what I know. I'm speaking from what I live. And I actually, the client that I had a session with, this has come up from not just that client, but a few clients and people recently, is that reflection back to me. Like, when I hear you speak, I can feel that you're living what you say. Like, it's recognized. When you're living the information, then it hits. It's shared from a different place. It's not just shared cognitively anymore. It's shared from deep in the body, because the body is holding on to the experience and it's learned. It's seen it different. It's approached it different. It's understood it different. And when we are actually being in the process of the experience with the awareness, with the knowledge, and with the process of the dysregulation into greater regulation, our body remembers. And Transformation can only happen when the body has a new experience, not just a new idea. And the experience it's not new just because you're doing something new. Like you can move to a different country and say you're starting over, it's a fresh start, you're doing things differently, it's new. But just because you're in a different location doesn't mean it's new, because you're still operating from the same patterns that you were operating from in the last place you lived. So newness isn't different on the outside, it's different on the inside. And speaking of inside, what I've noticed about the perception of inner work is like, I just need to understand more, I need to fix more, I need to heal more. Again, it's like gaining more resources to attain more things. But that's not inner work. Inner work is witnessing, it's presence, it's honesty, it's accountability, it's repentance through choosing differently. That's the inner work. It's your life in motion with you as the observer. And you're not becoming someone else. You're literally just becoming available to yourself. And most people don't realize that they're very, very unavailable to themselves. They think they are, because again, as my mentors say, my best thinking got me to my mentor. So I thought I knew a lot until I realized I didn't know anything. You know, and when we slow down long enough to be present, we see that each feeling and each sensation is serving a purpose. Because if I'm just trying to attain healing, or I'm trying to attain love and light, I'm acting from that place that isn't actually in love. It's not actually in love. I'm not loving my life. I'm trying to get a life that I love. If I'm in love with my life, it doesn't mean I have to feel love all the time. It means that I am feeling the fear and the anxiety and the complete petrification of the moment, like I did a few nights ago with my fur baby. And I feel that, and I'm in that. And in that moment of deep fear, I find love. Because the whole point of me being in that experience was not just for the love. It was so that I could better understand where the fear was. Why was it showing up? And learn from the experience. If I'm just in love all the time, and it doesn't mean I want to be very careful with this. It's very important that we approach every single day from the choice to be in love. But if you're walking around every single day and everything's great, everybody's happy, everything's perfect, that's not real love. It's not about everything being perfect. It's about it being so completely imperfect in many of the moments, and you're able to understand yourself better by being present with what's happening. Because if all everyone is seeking is love, where are the lessons? There are none. There's no growth. There's nothing that's learned when everything is great all the time. And again, the whole spiritual concept of love is that seeking love, being in love, but being in love from the perspective that you have to prove, you're trying to prove that you can be that type of good person. Like all you're doing is the things that you're doing are so worthy of notability and recognition. So also what's really powerful is accountability. Accountability, for me, accountability and love go hand in hand. I've learned by, number one, I hold myself as accountable as I can, but I have people in my life now that hold me accountable. And I hold my clients and my friends accountable. So most accountability is external. And it's someone checking on you. It's someone holding you accountable for what you said you're going to do. It's someone making sure that you follow through. And a lot of times, especially if we're just seeking love and we're just seeking validation and we're just seeking to be someone that appears as if they're a loving person or they appear as if they're a spiritual person, then we don't that type of person, that type of, I guess we could say, that part of our personality doesn't like real accountability. It likes to be in control, and it likes to be the leader, and it likes to be up here in the forefront, controlling everyone and everything, and having everyone look up to it, and seeing it as the most important thing. That's not love. Love is equality. Everyone is equal. You're not above anyone and no one's below you. And because you're all on the same playing field, you hold each other accountable. That's love. And it can seem like tough love for those that are not really open to true accountability. It can seem like someone's trying to force you to do something. I've had this come up in client sessions when I'm guiding them, and we're hitting on some soft spots. We're hitting on some painful spots from childhood where there's pain and there's fear and there's trauma. And when you start hitting on those spots, the body reacts from that place, and it doesn't trust the person on the other end. Why? Because those emotions were deemed unsafe. And if these emotions are coming up because of this person, that's the perception, then this is unsafe. The person is unsafe. I shouldn't be experiencing this. And the client will want to control the way the session goes, because in that moment, it's triggering those memories that were altogether avoided up until then. But the most important part of that process is me holding them a space of love and acceptance and support, but also holding them accountable for the capacity that they hold, knowing that it would not be coming to the surface if it wasn't ready to be seen, which means that, yes, I want them to explore it in the safety and the security of the space, but I also want them to see the power that they hold to face it and to witness it. And so there's a fine line to walk there. And sometimes we don't always get through it in the first few sessions. It takes a few sessions to really get to that place of witnessing. But if the person is willing to be there, then there are some really powerful discoveries that come through. And in that moment, it's really just asking yourself, can you witness yourself honestly? So I want to say this: embodied accountability is different. It asks, can I witness myself honestly, right? Can I own that? Can I own what is happening? Can I own the things about myself that I've been avoiding? Like I said, it's easy to own the positive, but can you own the negative? Can you own that that's like, yeah, you do that? If you can witness yourself honestly, if you can acknowledge what is happening without blame, and if you can stay present long enough to choose differently, that's embodied accountability. And it's you're not doing it just because someone told you to. You're doing it because you choose to, you want to, and you have the capacity to. But that one part, like, this is something that is talked about so much. So many talk about the work and how they're doing the work. And again, from my personal experience, it's not, the work is not really being applied because they don't really want the accountability of witnessing themselves honestly. What they do want is the credit of doing the work without actually doing the work. And so what gets to happen is if you start being honest with who you are, you actually work the work. And it's not to become better, it's just to become more present. It's not to figure yourself out, it's just to stay with yourself. Again, you're not trying to change yourself. You're just getting a better handle on who you actually are. And I can tell you right now, when you finally start to see yourself for who you are, it's pretty debilitating. I mean, when I saw who I was through this process with my mentors, I went through some shit. I mean, I just, again, I know I've mentioned this, but I saw myself for the just complete asshole that I've been my entire life. Just emotionally manipulating, being this emotionally manipulative child, carrying around so much hate and resentment. Um, it's it's seriously one of the most powerful experiences that I've ever had, is to see who I really am, to see the role that I play. And again, that's not something that you just do through awareness. Like when I talk about doing the work, there's actually things that you sit down and you do. There's actual work. Like there's inventory, there's journaling, and I'm not meaning like just affirmative journaling. I mean, there's actually a process to the journaling and accountable inventory where you're going through the memories of your life. And I've talked about this. You're writing down the meaning. Like there's this whole workbook that you go through, and you are doing actual work, because for me, this is so prior to my mentors, where I was coming from is because I knew what I knew, and because I had applied things to a certain degree, I thought I had resolved a lot of the trauma that lived in my nervous system, because when I talked about it, I didn't feel the things to the same degree that I used to. Well, I had done, some work, and I had done some processes, but I had not gone deeper until I actually started learning the other, like, entry points into the work, and let's say some real true outlines of accountability. And I'm talking about tools such as like assignments, answering questions, being in the process, revealing it in real time, sitting down and doing the inventory, going through the 12 steps, which takes years. So a lot of times people come from this place of, oh, I've done the work. And not only have they never actually done any accountable work, but the whole point of the work for them is just to talk about what they think they know, or what they think they understand, because that's exactly where I was coming from. And yet I still wasn't seeing myself for who I was. But when you sit down and you're doing that work, you're not running from it, you're not hiding it. There's a question, you're answering it, you're looking at it, and you're processing so much, and then you speak about it and you share it openly. I shared it with my accountability partner. So as I'm writing it down, I'm doing the inventory, I'm physically sitting down and being accountable with my time. I'm doing assignments, I'm doing somatic processing through questioning. I'm revealing myself through the inventory, the memories, the role I played, the meanings I've assigned, the stories, the assumptions, the presumptions, everything. How I felt about it then, how I feel about it now. There's a lot. That's 99.9% of people have not done that. And I can tell you right now that there is a vast difference. And I share that with you because it's something everyone gets to do. And when you do this, you start to see who you really are in the role that you've played in your life, which means the role that you're still playing. And when you have a better understanding of the role that you're playing, from that level of understanding, you really do get to start choosing differently. You actually see who you are for the first time. And when you see who you are, you can't unsee it and you can't go back. So you actually start to look at your growth and your evolution a little differently. Um, for me, instead of it being like just in the last 3 months, my entire life, the way everything appears for me is completely transformed. Um, Before the work, everything that I'm doing, even this live today, when I re-upload it, it's going to be formatted. I'm going to have some slides and things that I will be presenting for everybody. The way that I was applying myself towards the work and my process, my service was by the seat of my pants, right? I wasn't really putting any effort into it. I wasn't really showing up in the way that I could, I was still hiding. I was still trying to control. I was still trying to get attention in a very specific way. Because if I were to do things in the way that I knew I could, then things would have to change. Not me forcing them to change, but I would have to show up differently. I would actually have to start putting in work in ways that I never have. And I was trying to avoid that at all costs. So now I'm actually showing up and applying myself, trademarking a course, putting all of my wisdom behind and all of my work behind, not just what I know, but what I'm living and what I've embodied. And I'm learning that if I'm not every single day applying myself in some way, little steps every single day, applying myself in some way that's going to bring me to the next part of my evolution, such as a to-do, what I'm going to wake up, brush my teeth, make up my bed, go do a workout, spend some time my accountability journal, do some personal inventory, work on my course, like having this list mapped out for me. Because if I don't, then for me, it was always this, oh, I'm just like in the feminine flow, I'm embodied, I'm doing things organically. But what I was really doing was just being lazy. I was doing things, but not really accomplishing anything. So I'm starting to build my foundation on stone. And even just coming forward and sharing this and doing this live today, it was supposed to be a pre-recording. I actually didn't even print my stuff off correctly. It's not even as together as I would like, but I'm proud of myself for coming forward and sharing this information and speaking into everything. It's not as polished as I would like, but I know that will progress over time. It's we think we're accountable for our actions, you guys, but how often do we actually check ourselves? That's the thing. We don't normally check ourselves, and we definitely don't have people there to normally check us on our actions. Because think about your conversations with people. If you're in a relationship or you have a friendship, you're comfortable. 99% of the time, we surround ourselves with people that reflect our comfort zone, not challenge us to be better people. And the 5 people that we surround ourselves with the most is the framework of how we are living our lives. And if we're not checking ourselves, if we're not actually checking off the check marks every single day, this is something I'm doing again with a client right now. I share my to-do list with him and he sends it to me. And I even I consider my clients accountability partners, because I am not just here teaching people, I am doing it myself. And so if we don't, and number one, if we don't have someone there to mold the challenges even in the accountability, or mold what the challenges look like from a place of embodiment, again, look at who you surround yourself with. If things in your life, if you really have never done some deep internal accountability, like number one, if you've never gone through the 12 steps, you're not, I can get, there's really no self-work being done. There's no self-development being done. And nobody is, let me say, not just go through the 12 steps. If you have never even approached the 12 steps, if you've never even read about them, looked into them, if you've never even begun them, then there's definitely no work that's being done. Because I just started the 12 steps. I kept, quote unquote, I was going to for all the years that I was in recovery and rehab, and I never did, because it meant I would have to actually slow down and do something that I needed to do instead of doing what I wanted to do. Because every single day we can all wake up and do whatever we want to do. That's so easy, because what we want to do gets us attention. It gives us the opportunity to feel important. It gives us the opportunity to be comfortable. So showing up every day and doing what you want to do is not the same thing as doing what you need to do. And a lot of times we do what we want to do because we say we love it. Oh, I love it. I'm doing what I love. This work is what I do. Do I love it? Yeah. But do I also have days where I just absolutely can't stand it? Yeah. This work is my life. It's not just a job. It's not just something where I can prove how talented I am. That's not what this is. This is literally me being the expression of my work and me sharing from that place and me working with people from that place. And it's not easy. People project onto me all the time. They challenge me all the time. They resent me all the time. They judge me all the time. And at the end of the day, I'm more likely to get someone that's really, really in that framework of I'm the one that's causing the emotion, but that's a part of it. And I understand that because I've been the same way towards my mentors. You know, that's the way it happens. It's gonna happen. And so when I say I love what I do, it's not just because of the service. The service isn't the offering. I love what I do because I love being human. And I have ran from being human for so long. I mean, my whole spiritual thing was about being something other. And now that I know God and I have a relationship with God, God speaks to me and I can hear God because I can hear something other than the voice of fear. I can actually hear a voice of reason. I can hear a voice of accountability. I can hear a voice of clarity that's saying, but maybe maybe it's not really what you think it is, you know? Um, so getting up every day just to do what you love is great, but you're also probably in a very specific comfort zone. If you're not doing something that makes you question your entire existence, um, then you're definitely not challenging yourself. And I mean, not because of just financial, not just because of, you know, that those types of circumstances, but literally because in the process, you are learning who you are, right? That's why building a business, if you ever built a business or like me going through trademarking a course plus working on that whole business aspect, you really see who you are. You see where your resolve is. You see where you lack the uh, responsibility of showing up because you don't have a job to fall back on. So your livelihood depends on how much action you're willing to take every single day. Your ability to buy food is dependent on how much effort you're willing to put in. And this the same way with this work. To live a life that is something other than survival, to live a life that is actually full and fulfilled right now. That's what this work is about, not attaining fulfillment later on, not attaining healing later on, not attaining success later on, not reaching some form of capacity later on, but acknowledging it here right now in the experience right now by being present with the experience right now and giving yourself an opportunity to better understand it right now. And when you do that, when you speak from in the body, not in the thoughts. And people recognize it. It will be received. It will be heard. So, and if you're not, you can say you're embodying something all day long and it's just it's not going to land. It doesn't land because someone that is embodied, if you can say you're embodying something, but someone that is embodying things is just like, no, you're really not. So instead of jumping on the bandwagon of knowing that you are something, and I'm not saying it because you need somebody to validate that. I'm just saying there is a difference. But before you jump on the bandwagon of knowing that you are something, I would invite you to pause and see what it is within you that you're not, and are you accepting the parts of you that are not? Because if you're not accepting the parts of you that are not, it doesn't matter how much you think you are or that you have or that you've done. I've definitely definitely got a lot of embodiment work left in front of me. And for the parts that I have embodied, they speak very clearly. And in those parts, the lessons that I'm still facing, like the parts of me that I've embodied, I'm still facing lessons connected to those same parts. Like I've embodied parts of those lessons and I'm still revisiting those lessons. Embodiment isn't something you attain. It's just something that you get to live differently. So I'm still facing lessons for things that I've embodied, because I can always learn it differently. Always. And that's the gift of the human condition. And when you really start practicing it, there's a tangible difference in all that you are, in the way that you speak, in your essence. I mean, it's noticeable, and people respond to that. And that way, when people, what I mean by that, when people respond to it, if you're like me, I was seeking so much attention from people that I was seeking that response. I was seeking that validation. I needed people to see me as that person before I ever was that person, if that makes sense. I was trying so hard to be the person that I needed people to see me as, so that I could have the courage to actually follow through with being that person. And so for me, I was always living from that place of knowing it, but never actually doing it. For the longest time, talking about my business, I never actually registered a business. I never actually put that effort in. So I was living a lie. I was living an illusion. I was performing that act. And even now with this trademark, I'm still creating it. I'm still it's still getting put together. That's why I haven't, the soft launch will be soon, but it takes time. It takes effort. And there are days where I just don't want to do it. There's days where I just don't want to put the effort in. There's days where people reach out and they need help and support, and I just feel like I can't do it today. We're not trying to outrun those moments, but I used to really hate that those moments would show up. And now I'm living in more acceptance that they're there and that they will show up. And that's another big difference. So I want to say thank you to everyone that's tuned in today and that's received this video. I'm looking forward to, I will be re-uploading it. I will also have some slides accompanying that. Fingers crossed, I have not put together a video in the way that I have imagined it in my mind. So we'll see how that goes. But if all goes well, then I have some slides that will be accompanying the video that will give you guys some really amazing visuals. And I'm excited. That's something new. That's something I've been wanting to do and I haven't done. And I'm really excited to play in that and see how that looks. And as I'm bringing this to a close, the main reason why I've been touching on this subject so much and the reason why I've been revisiting it is because it has been one of the most important parts of my own growth, is understanding the difference. And I'm still learning. I'm just sharing with you where I am at this point in time, but I'm still learning the difference between knowing and being. I still have those moments where again, like I shared with you, I approach it from what I know, and I'm never right. I'm never right. Anytime I think I know, I'm never right, because I'm not slowing down long enough to be present with what's happening. I'm approaching it from what I think I know. I'm never right, ever. So when you give yourself an opportunity to go through the real process of change, you're going to be repeating cycles of awareness, and you're going to be repeating cycles of experience. So that's something to keep in mind. You're going to be repeating the cycle. You're going to be repeating the lessons. You're going to be revisiting it. If you're seeking, and what tends to happen, oh, really quickly, what tends to happen is most people are trying so desperately to no longer live those again. And so they're trying so hard not to have that experience again. They will try to avoid it at all costs. And they think, like, this was a big one for me. I thought that if I figured something out in that experience, if I learned something, then it was done, I had mastered it, and it would not show up that way again. And even though it kept happening that way, I still wasn't quite getting that wasn't true. And it's only been in the last few months where I've really started to see that no, this is going to keep coming back around. It needs to keep coming back around, because every time it comes back around, I still am not approaching it the way that I know I could. I'm not applying myself in the way that I know I could. I still have activity around it, even though I bounce back immediately. I'm still facing the challenge of being present. And so the lesson is not to out. Okay. Sorry, you guys, it kicked out for a second. I had to reboot my Wi-Fi there. Thank you. I really appreciate that. You know, hang on one second. Let me clear the bottom of my screen really quickly. Okay, there we go. Okay, hopefully. Okay, there we go. Okay, hopefully I'm back. Let me know if I'm frozen, if I'm looping, or if something's going on. But yeah, I really appreciate that, Chris. I I was a little bit iffy about this being a live instead of a recording, but it's going to end up being a replay or recording anyway. So okay, good. Thank you. I had a feeling it wasn't there for a second, so I appreciate your feedback. And I appreciate, those that are here. I don't think that there's only like maybe a handful, maybe like two or three that have hung around the whole time. But that's perfect. Even if it was just you and me, Chris, it would be perfect, because I also am aware that a lot of times people don't want to listen to an hour-long video. So I've actually gone over a bit what I wanted today. So I'm going to go back and edit it, and I'll probably cut some parts out and add some stuff in to make it a little bit shorter on the replay. But I love a live because I get to have a conversation. At the same time, something that I'm in the practice of doing differently is not just staying in that comfort zone of the live, because it is more comfortable for me to do the live than the pre-recording. The pre-recordings require a bit more effort. It takes a bit more time. Whereas this live could go on for an hour to an hour and a half, but altogether for a pre-recording with the editing and the uploading, that's hours of time. So I hope everything I shared with you guys today made sense. I know I was trying to get everything in there, so I hope everything was tangible and relatable. And also, in terms of the series that I'm doing here, the reason why I'm starting with this is because this is a doorway. It's a doorway into the other aspects, which is control as a control is fear seeking safety. When I was trying to control what was happening with Bruiser, it's because I was afraid, and I was trying to seek the safety of knowing what was wrong after identifying with it being wrong. If I know it's wrong, I can fix it. That's the perception of safety, even though there's really no safety in fear. Then there's the loneliness versus withdrawal, right? And how that happens. And that's also this again. These are all topics that have been coming up consistently in my own life and with my clients, and how I'm sharing with you the most common denominator. So control is fear seeking safety, loneliness versus withdrawal, the hidden addiction of becoming. And that's really what this is transitioning into, is that people also become addicted to becoming something else. They are striving so hard to become or be seen as something that there is an addiction in that. And actually, there's not an addiction in that. We're already operating from an addictive behavior, which is the seeking of the becoming. And that's an important one to take note of. Also, just learning to trust yourself again. Pain versus suffering, avoidant pain and transformational pain. Avoidant pain is suffering. Transformational pain is freedom. And humility through humiliation. So all of these are, frameworks for what we'll be further exploring in this the series of the human condition. So one thing I would like you to take with you as you leave here is that knowing tells us what's happening, right? I can tell you what's happening because I know what happened, right? That's knowing. But being allows us to experience it again. And if I'm being in the presence of what's happening, I'm experiencing, and I don't just know what's happening, I am fully present, and knowing doesn't get in the way of the experience. That's different. And transformation occurs in the space between the two. So I can know what's happening. If I stay present with it, then I'm bridging the gap between knowing and being, and they become one. And again, you got to go through and recycle quite a few things every single time. So, let's see. I think that's probably where I want to end it. I had some questions I was going to leave with you guys, but it looks like I have basically, I'll have them in the replay. But actually, it looks like I copied the same pages like 3 times. Okay, I'll leave you with this one. So, yeah, absolutely, Chris, absolutely. Okay, so one question I'm going to leave you guys with is, what truth do I already know but have not embodied? And this comes with, where am I seeking information instead of experience? So when we're operating from embodiment, we take all the information that we've received and we're just with it. And we allow it to work through us in the experience. So we take everything, even from this video today, you can take what you've received and take it with you and allow it to work through you, instead of coming from what you know about what's being said. Come from the place of curiosity, come from the place of, well, if I just accept that I don't know, and I accept that I'm here to learn, then it's not about me knowing how to do this. It's about me having a better, more clearer perception of what's happening once I've applied what I know. So in the moment of the experience, you allow what you know to move through you, to use in the moment and apply it in the moment so that you can be more present with what's happening. And when you ask yourself where you're seeking information instead of experience, I guarantee you're going to have at least, a few aspects of your life where you're actually chasing to understand. You're trying too hard to be seen as knowing. So take a good look at where you're seeking information instead of experience, where you're just trying to take things in so you can talk about it instead of actually being with what you're receiving. Because what happens is, in that, you're trying to avoid feeling. Because if you're just analyzing everything, you're not really feeling what's happening in your body as you're receiving the information. Even here in this in this session or in this episode, you can go back and receive it and see what's coming up in your body as you're listening. Are you wanting to get away because it's taking too much time? Do you wanting to fidget? Are you wanting to do other things? Or, what are you wanting to do instead of just being present? So, yeah, what truth do you already know, but you have not embodied? I would sit with that, ask yourself, and see what comes up. So, thank you all for being here. I appreciate you so much. I will be making this available once I've gone through the process of editing it and re-uploading it. So it will not be directly available once I get done here. But I will have it up as soon as possible. So, and for those of you that are going to come back and watch it on the replay, or if you are watching on the replay, please let me know what you think about the format and how it landed for you. It would be great assistance and support for me to see how you guys are receiving it. And I will definitely have more shorter form videos coming in. I'm still getting that practice under my belt, but I will definitely have that I'm working in that process right now. So thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you guys so much. I love you dearly. And as always, I just really look forward to seeing you guys in the next live and receiving you in all of the pre-recordings and the uploads. So until then, I hope you've had a great time here today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And if you have any questions, or if you would just like to communicate with me, I will have my email in the description, and I will have more information on how to contact with me. So, or connect with me. Sorry, contact me. So, yeah. Until then, you guys. Adonai.